Warning: some of the following images are graphic in nature and might be disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. 35-year-old Kelly was a spiritual and adventurous soul. She was athletic, smart, and liked to travel the world. People described Kelly to be a very happy and outgoing person. Her mom said Kelly would always find the good in everyone. She wasn't the type to judge unless she got to meet you. Her mom stated Kelly also loved to travel so much that she spontaneously moved from Colorado to Indian Rocks Beach on Florida's Gulf Coast to set herself on a new adventure. When she moved to Indian Rocks Beach, she became a good friend with a lady named Donna Sharrett. Donna remembers Kelly as a loving person. She also remembers the day she met her at a beach meditation circle. At the time for Kelly, things in Florida were good and seemed to get even better when Kelly met a man vacationing there. That man was attractive, charming, and swept Kelly off her feet. That man was David Perry. Kelly and David met on a nice hot day when Kelly was out at a restaurant. It was a salad bar to be exact. David walked up to Kelly and offered her a pepper. Kelly was caught off guard and answered David with a yes. Besides that, Kelly was by herself and David was also alone, so it made for a good first interaction. Kelly and David became sweethearts fast after that day, and things in their relationship moved faster. Within weeks, David moved out of his place and moved into Kelly's condo. Kelly just kept saying how much they were in love with each other, and she even said, "I know this sounds crazy, but it feels right. I really love this man. I think he is the one." 46-year-old David Perry, originally from New York, was a retired New York State Corrections officer. He moved from New York to Indian Rocks Beach after retiring from being a corrections officer. Kelly's sister Lauren got to meet David shortly after he moved in with Kelly. Her first impression of David was that she liked him. He was very friendly and charming, just like her sister. But good first impressions morphed into questionable second ones when the family found out that David was militant. Some would say obsessive-compulsive about cleanliness. He vacuumed probably 3 times a day. The lines in the carpet had to go a certain way. When the family was at Kelly's house hanging out, Kelly, out of fear of David, asked her sister to help clean the bedroom. Kelly stated that David likes to spot check everything. No one understood how she can change that fast. It was like she became this other person, and she was just constantly worried about him and what he thought about her and trying to make sure he was happy. Many said David was becoming increasingly possessive and controlling. Donna said he shut down Kelly's social media account. He would also read her emails and isolated her from friends and family. Kelly told her family she was feeling overwhelmed and that she can feel David was closing in on her. Then 3 years into their relationship, Kelly made a surprising life decision. She enrolled in the police academy. Kelly was going to become a cop. She wanted to better her life and grow as an adult. Kelly's friends would all say she was great. She was a motivator. She never quit. She never complained. Students looked up to Kelly because of how strong she was. 4 weeks from graduation from the academy, Kelly was happy. But at home, with David, she was not. Kelly decided she'd had enough, but leaving wasn't going to be easy. It was a cool evening in March and Kelly was ready to have a fun girls' night at Donna's. But Donna says David had other plans. Donna says she wasn't in my house for 2 minutes and her text message goes off. A couple of minutes go by and he texts her again. A few more minutes go by and he just keeps texting Kelly. "What's wrong? Where are you, Kelly? Why aren't you picking up your phone? Please text me back." They probably spent 2 hours inside the house, and out of those 2 hours, David texted 80 to 90% of the time. Kelly got tired of it, so she decided to pick up David's phone call. Kelly on the phone with him can be heard saying, "I told you I'm through with this. I'm done with this, Dave. I told you it's over." See, what David didn't know was that Kelly had already found a new place to live and she would be leaving him and moving in the next day. Kelly told Donna that scumbag loser said, "I'm going to bed. You have a good time with Donna. I'm sorry I ruined your weekend." Donna said they left to go grab drinks, but once in Donna's truck, Kelly says, "I need you to lock the doors." Donna said, "What going on?" Kelly tells Donna, "You see that car over there? That's David's car. He is stalking me." David lied about going to bed and was really stalking Kelly and Donna. Donna said she told Kelly, "He doesn't know where I live, and how did he get here?" She said, "I don't know. He must have followed me." Donna said her and Kelly drove off and David was not far behind. He was following them eventually. They were able to lose David in traffic. Safe back at the house, Donna couldn't shake what had happened. Donna and Kelly were just standing saying to each other, "This is not normal. Donna told Kelly, "This is not normal, you need to call somebody. He's stalking you, he's stalking me, that's not okay." Kelly told Donna, "I can take care of this, don't worry about it." Kelly thought David had gone home, but he hadn't. He was back in front of Donna's house, parked in his car, waiting to see Kelly. Kelly told Donna, "He'll be right back, I'm tired of this," and proceeded to walk straight up to the car and just yanked it open. She screamed, "What the hell are you doing, Dave?" He's like, "But Kelly, I love you, I promise I'll change." Kelly screams, "It's over, Dave, I told you I am done," and he said, "Well then fine," with the blankest and evil look. David grabs the door, slammed it shut, and peeled off into the night. Donna was shell-shocked. Kelly tried to make light of it until they went to bed that night. But it was hard for the both of them to just laugh something that scary off. Kelly told her best friend Donna, "I'm scared, I'm really scared of David." She opened up and told Donna about the time David told Kelly, "If you ever leave me, I will throw your dead body in the Gulf, and they will never find you." Kelly was happy but scared because the next day was going to be life-changing. She was going to leave David for good. As the next day approached, Kelly and Donna had lunch at Chili's while in the parking lot as they said their goodbyes. Donna pleaded with Kelly to not go see David alone. She said, "Kelly, please, I'm begging you, let me follow you," and she pulled her hands back strong and fierce. And she said no. Kelly folded her arms across her chest and said she didn't want Donna to come and that things will be okay. Kelly Rothwell went home to break up with her controlling and possessive boyfriend David Perry. Kelly's best friend Donna pleaded with her not to go alone, but there wasn't much she can do. Donna told Kelly, "I love you and I will talk to you later." Kelly answered by saying, "Yes, I love you too, Donna, and I will text you later to let you know how things went." After not hearing from Kelly for a few hours, Donna gets a text from Kelly's cell phone. A text that didn't sound like her friend at all. A text Donna thought were sent by David. It said something like, "Going for dinner, call you later, just a letter you." See, Kelly never would text like that, but David would, so it freaked Donna out. The next day, Donna becomes even more concerned when she receives a troubling call from the cadet Kelly had plans with the night before. He said Kelly never showed. At that moment, Donna physically got ill. She knew with everything in her body and soul something terrible had happened. After many failed attempts to get in touch with Kelly, Donna calls the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. Donna requested a welfare check be done on Kelly. Detectives told Donna okay, and when they arrived, the doors to Kelly's house were locked. So they utilized force to enter the home, and Kelly is nowhere to be found, but what they do see is unusual. Inside the home, they find it was recently cleaned. There was no blood, there was no damage. David Perry was reportedly obsessive-compulsive about cleaning, so maybe what they were seeing wasn't so strange. There was absolutely nothing that would indicate to them that a crime had been committed. There is nothing to say she had been hurt, and it doesn't look like a crime scene. Detectives talked to neighbors who reported they heard sounds coming from the couple's condo. Neighbors told detectives they did hear loud banging and arguing late at night. Monday morning around 8 o'clock, her boyfriend David Perry calls the director of the police academy where Kelly is a cadet. He asked them, was Kelly in class? They told him, "You need to speak with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office because they were trying to contact you and it appears you've been avoiding them." He said, "I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm not calling the sheriff's office," and hung up. When deputies were finally able to get a hold of David Perry, he was on the road driving home to New York. Detectives said they can tell when speaking to him that something was not right. He was extremely erratic on the phone. He was very evasive and didn't want to answer any questions. He could not wait to get off the phone with a deputy. At that point, they knew that David had something to do with it. When Kelly's family learned she was missing, Kelly's sister Lauren immediately called David. She said, "Hey, where are you?" And he said, "I'm in New York, what's going on?" Like he had no idea why she was calling him. Lauren, Kelly's sister, said, "Well, where's Kelly? What's going on?" David replied, "Oh, I don't know, maybe she's in Utah." Nothing he was saying was making sense, so she hung up on him. Lauren said after that she knew right away that he had killed her. David Perry hired an attorney and refused to answer any more questions from law enforcement. For the time being, their hands were tied as the investigation went on. More disturbing clues were discovered, like Kelly's police cadet study materials were found in the dumpster near the condo, and Kelly's car was found 2 miles from the house by David Perry. When Kelly went missing, journalist Lee Clapton was assigned the story, and while doing research, she learned some shocking things and formed some strong opinions about David Perry. She felt he is a misogynistic, pathological liar. He's an abuser. He's dangerous. Some people think it was spontaneous. She thought he had it planned because there were several indications that he had already started moving on before Kelly went missing. He canceled his gym membership, saying he was moving to Hawaii. She did not leave that home alive that day, although detectives had nobody. They believed that based on their investigation, Kelly Rothwell had been murdered. Florida Police Cadet Kelly Rothwell is missing and presumed dead at this point in time. Pinellas County Sheriff's detectives say her boyfriend, former corrections officer David Perry, is their prime suspect. They described him as manipulative, controlling, jealous, OCD-type behavior. Investigators feel strongly about two things. Kelly was murdered. We know that David Perry killed Kelly Rothwell, but why? What was his motive? Investigators say they have a few theories, but Kelly ending their relationship is the most probable one. David Perry hired an attorney and has refused to answer any questions from law enforcement. Detectives haven't had enough to charge him, so David was back in his hometown of Elmira, New York, and seemed to be starting over. He totally just restarted his life and went on like nothing. Detectives were contacted by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office in Florida regarding a tip that they received. The New York State Police received a tip and were now looking at David Perry stemming from his days as a prison guard in Elmira Correctional Facility and something called a red dot. A red dot is a physical force by guards involving inmates. That's what the guards called it, and sometimes guards get hurt during those altercations. District Attorney Baker says David Perry had planned to use a red dot incident to fake an injury and make some money. He knew what he had to do to go out on retirement. He knew what his benefits were going to be. He said, "The next one it happens, I'm out of here." When the incident did happen, David Perry was there, but he is not very involved. He's certainly not injured, but he still filed false workers' comp and retirement benefits claims as if he was there and was attacked. After that, he's making close to $500,000, and he was enjoying life and apparently spending some time down in Florida as well, and doing things like windsurfing and lifting weights, and disabled people can't do that. As part of their investigation, New York State Police wanted to interview David Perry. David Perry was eventually arrested not for Kelly's murder but for grand larceny and insurance fraud. He was found guilty and sentenced to 4 to 12 years, but that wasn't the end of it. Almost a year later, he was charged again for grand larceny, this time for the retirement benefits he collected during the search of his residence. They located $120,000 in U.S. currency hidden underneath the dresser, and that's still not all. While in jail on the larceny charge, David got into a fight with another inmate. Someone didn't show him enough respect and he beat him up, but he was convicted of assault, so he had to do 6 months in jail. During this whole thing, David eventually pleaded guilty to the grand larceny charge and spent less than 2 years for all crimes. He's now out on parole. He is living an innocent life. David Perry has never been arrested or charged in the disappearance or murder of Kelly Rothwell.